So someone just sent me a very interesting article about the Guggenheim's first black curator in 80 years, one Chaedria Bouvier. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And this young lady was featured in an article by Essence magazine. I'm going somewhere with this, just follow close. And she was making the claim that she is the first black curator in 80 years at the Guggenheim Museum of Art in New York City. And one Nancy Spector went on to present her work, her curation, without including or acknowledging her. And the question I pose with all that said is, why? And how? There's an answer to these questions. The reason Chaedria Bouvier, I apologize if I'm not saying your name right, but the reason she was slighted like that is because, flat out, black people do not have their own art institutions. So the very few of us, like myself, like Chaedria Bouvier, that care about art, have to enter these kind of spaces where there's no one that looks like us in positions of power to, at the very least, hopefully, fingers crossed, advocate for us or relate to us and see the need and see why there should be acknowledgement in real time. Now, why don't we have any of these institutions? Why don't we have a black-run, black-owned, black-controlled museum of art? It's because black people don't do art. And we don't care about art at the same degree that we care about basketball, sports in general, or music. I'll give you an example of how I know this to be true. First black curator in 80 years at a museum like the Guggenheim in New York City. This is not some little rinky-dink ass museum. This is the Guggenheim, right? Follow me. Do you know why Chaedria Bouvier had to go to Essence magazine? Because there's a better chance that a black-owned magazine is going to care for real about her story as opposed to an art forum. That's not to say art forum won't care about it. It's not to say the art forum hasn't even reported on it. It's just to say, why should they? Why should they? Because it's not like there's a competing publication that's black-owned that'll jump on the story before you, and if you don't jump on that story, you stand a chance of losing potential money. But because Art Forum knows that there's no comparison to it that's black, it knows that you gotta wait for Art Forum to move, or go to Essence. Take your black ass to a black ass publication that wouldn't give a shit about art to begin with unless it included a black woman. That's another story. I've never seen Essence report about art, ever. There should be more stories like this in Essence, in a Jet, on BET, on whatever platforms that we still have. It's the same reason Dapper Dan got the deal he got. I said it. Gucci been stealing from Dapper Dan for decades. And the only reason that's been possible is because we didn't patronize him at the same rate as we did Michael Jordan or Jay-Z. That's not to say he wasn't patronized. There are a lot of celebrities that have Dapper Dan pieces since the 1980s, but not at the same rate as black people have Jordans. And for culture to do its job and preserve our creatives the way that Dapper Dan should have been preserved, the way that Chaedria Bouvier should have had her curation and her credit and her acknowledgement preserved. For that to happen, we need patronage. We need to give a shit first. We can't leave it up to these institutions to care. They clearly don't. I heard about this Guggenheim shit from Essence magazine before I heard about it from Art Forum. What does that tell you? And again, they might have said something about it, but again, why would they? Why should they? Because they feel like being nice? Black people need their own institutions for the arts. Period. For that to happen, we need to patronize the arts. Period. For us to patronize the arts, we have to have a literacy of the arts. Period. For us to have a literacy of the arts, we gotta give a shit, man. And a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us are probably going to wind up giving a shit as a result of an example of excellence that is mainstream, that is accessible, the same way LeBron James is accessible. Oprah, Beyonce, I'm not talking about their physical or you meeting them. I just mean their example is Googleable. When was the last time you Googled Alan Locke? Better question, have you ever been given a reason to? Chaedria LaBouvier's situation is a result of a lack of interest in the arts from black people, resulting in a lack of black-owned, black-run, black-operated, black-controlled, and black-patronized arts institutions where Chaedria could have gone to ahead of Guggenheim. But because there is no black-owned, black-controlled, black-patronized, independent arts institution that addresses our art as a priority, she has to take her chances with institutions like the Guggenheim. Dapper Dan has to allow his work to be pillaged for decades and then accept a bullshit ass deal from Gucci. And then what do you do? What do you do? The community you created these works in and for did not patronize you at the rate you needed them to. That doesn't mean they didn't, but you were not patronized at the rate that you needed to be patronized at so that Gucci can't steal from you. We need our own black institutions for art. It's deeper than you think, for real.